that because it's funny.
Okay.
Okay, and
we are going live, just so you know.
my friend.
I can.
Okay, and then how do you want us to go?
And we are live to YouTube.
Do it this way.
Yeah.
Wait, okay.
1, 2, 3,
Ladies
4.
last.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, starting the commercial. If you guys are good.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
And we are back with another episode of Wrong About Everything. I am Democratic strategist, the Puerto Rican heat, Javier Murillo.
I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch.
And I am former DFL State Senator Carla Bigham.
And we are
Wrong About Everything.
Welcome back, Senator.
Thank you.
Yeah, remind. I think by now you're kind of regular, but maybe tell folks who you are.
I have been around the Capitol for a while. Served 9 years in between both chambers, and now I serve on the county board, Washington County Board, and love local government and love you guys. Appreciate the opportunity to come here, and big fan of the show and your listeners and credit unions.
We were worried you were going to be not able to come because of the snow, but the snow fizzled.
I have a question about that. Amy said last night, "Oh, Carla probably can't come because of the snow." I said, "How is it possible that you are other than Amy, possibly one of the most Minnesotan people to be on this Minnesota podcast ever? How do you not have 4-wheel drive?"
I do. I have a Ford Ranger that has a lot of sandbags in the back of my bed of my Ford Ranger, and it has 4-wheel drive. So you are correct on that. But see, the 46-year-old Carla is not as brave as the 26-year-old Carla would have been when it comes to storms. So I'm a little bit more judicious about coming out. That's all. That's all.
I see. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just an age thing now.
You apparently become a Minnesota wuss. You start fearing snow.
But I have the flannel on because it's cooler out.
But the Puerto Rican was like, no problem. I'm not
you
even
literally
worried.
I'm like you're the closest to a farmer's wife that we've had on the show.
He actually did. Like, his family does have a farm. My husband.
There you go. See, you are the closest to a farmer's wife you've ever had. And I'm like, how? What? She might not come with a storm.
Yeah.
Like, I'll pick her up in my Jeep.
Drive out.
But here we are.
Just don't look at my driving record.
But we're glad you made it.
Yes.
We're so happy.
Here, deep within the recesses of the Minnesota Credit Union Network studio. We're in the Credit Union Network studio, deep in the recesses of what is it? MBC.
MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis.
Yes.
We like to hit that M hard.
Yeah.
Everybody think we're on NBC.
Yeah, where you can also have a podcast with our producer Gabe Noah. So check out our website, www.wrongabouteverything-podcast.com, and please our YouTube channel, which is getting more traction, which is great. You should reward that. You know how hard it was to get that YouTube channel. So because we had one, and then someone forgot the password, and no one could remember who was the owner of the password, and so then we had to create a whole new channel. So help these old podcasters.
Yeah, I had one for comedy, and it's just gone.
It went away.
It just went away, and you would have thought that I would have got an email or something.
Yeah.
Hey, Javier, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Just gone.
Oh.
I got a question for Javier. If Senator Eichhorn needed legal representation, who should he call?
Oh, thanks for asking. Mm-hmm. Bradshaw and Bryant.
Okay.
Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them, because consultations are free. Please call them at 800-770-7008 or find them at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. Yeah, nice segue. It was quite a week to be like. Have you spoken to
It's
the?
an icky week.
Have you spoken to? Well, both of you. Have you spoken to your former colleagues and your in the chamber? that you
Yeah,
were once?
it's an icky week all
It's
around,
it
right?
is
The story is icky.
disgusting.
There is a family
Yeah.
in terrible pain.
Yeah.
There's a senator sitting in jail on felony charges of sex trafficking with a minor.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that for the folks that know him or what they thought knew him well, they are pretty much stunned, disgusted, disappointed, horrified. And
The rebuke from it came out from the Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker of the House, Lisa Damath, very quickly, and then you started seeing it from people from Senator Eichhorn's own caucus. So whatever information they've been,
including the whole caucus issued a very swift.
Yep.
This is terrible. He
And
needs
you
to
should
resign, and
immediately.
he can focus on his family.
so whatever information they have been given, and obviously it is limited information, but not no information. Whatever information that they have been given made them blow past. We have to wait and see how this plays out. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. All the crap that you hear, there was none of that. So obviously, I don't know anything more than what we see in the papers and all that, and just capital gossip. But yeah,
And today's reporting has more details than
Yeah.
yesterday about sort of the charges
This is serious crime.
Well, here's a little bit to this, though. I don't think that Minnesota Senate Republicans have much more information than what we have, but they've seen enough to make a call that he needs to step down, of which I am very proud of that.
So this is a very serious crime. This was a federal sting by the FBI. And there, as Amy said, you feel absolutely terrible for Senator Eichhorn's family. He has a wife,
Yep.
4 kids, and people need to understand that those are the real victims. To be honest, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with this in the community. I hope Senator Eichhorn does the right thing and resigns and is held accountable for the horrendous crime that he's accused of. And I think the Senate Republicans acted very swiftly in how they handled this situation, and I think that it's a distraction. This that really is just a difficult situation to just kind of grasp, in when you're thinking of the colleagues that you're with, and I think it is a difficult situation, but to handle it so quickly is, and hopefully he does the right thing by resigning for his community and his family to deal with it. I think that was, the right.
Yeah, he could also be
Note to
expelled.
strike.
The Senate body can vote to expel, and we've had this conversation, and we'll probably have some of this because I believe that there's another senator with felony charges that should have stepped down months ago or been expelled and has not. And I'm not whatabouting this, by the way. I want to make sure that to be clear. This stands of its own.
Yep.
He needs to go
Yep.
unequivocally wrong because it goes to judgment. Well, I don't need to know the final prosecution on this. I've seen enough to know that the charges I think there's enough, and at some point we have to have some faith in our political institutions and the Minnesota Senate, and it does not bode well to have 2 charged felons sitting in the Minnesota Senate.
You got to have better judgment. You got to have better judgment to serve the public, but that also goes for the president of the United States too, who stands with 34 felony
Well,
convictions.
I don't defend that either.
Well, and I think it's, and Amy did, I think it's very important that we make a distinction. There's no moral equivalency between what Justin Eichhorn is accused of and Mitchell and Senator Mitchell. Maybe it'll come out that she was in there to kill the old woman or something like that. I don't know. We don't know that now. There is no equivalency. This is something that if anyone says, well, Republicans don't need to do X because the Democrats won't do Y, these are not the same thing, and I think it's extremely important to make that point.
Well, it's also, again, going back to the whole there's a job to do up at the Capitol, and these are distractions to get
can't
the
do
work.
it. They're
You
obviously
can't
both
do it.
unwell.
They're not able to work within their caucuses, to work within the system that is set up there to get their bills heard, to move legislation to benefit their own community and represent their people. And that's what you're supposed to be there for. These are two people that have huge distractions. So
Well, and somebody that I care about in my family had a husband that was caught in a sting, and that was 13-year-old. 13. It was a
similar operation.
It was
sting?
it was a police officer, but posing as a 13-year-old, posing as a father who was selling his daughter.
Ugh.
And in it, and this is why somebody I know is connected to, I won't say what part of law enforcement, but they said that it's very unlikely that there was any confusion because they're so concerned with the entrapment that they ask about 9,000 different ways.
Yes.
Do you know exactly what this is, who this is? And because I got to see this other situation, I got to see the emails that went back and forth, and it was very clear the age of the person. Yep. They were asking, "What do you want to do?" and like him listing all the things that he was going to do, and what was most horrible about that, not moving past what was attempted to happen, is that it got on television, and this person that I know found out that it had happened when the neighbors came up to her when she was putting out the garbage cans, and they said, "We saw your husband on TV last night," because he had lied about why he had gotten arrested. And he ultimately did go to, he ultimately got jail time. Not as much as you'd think, but he did get jail time. And one thing, just close circuit to Mrs. Eichhorn, is that this person that I know was able to obtain an expedited divorce. So there are things
processes
in situations like this where you can get out of a situation quicker than just regular folk.
And I have to mention here, just point out that there was no drag queen involved.
Yep.
There was no trans person involved. That Eichhorn is predictably, because this happens over and over again, predictably someone who, in terms to mixes religion and politics, and he was and is in fact in policymaking has had a focus on protecting children. Supposedly, he was the co-author of a bill to increase the penalties for possession and distribution of child sexual abuse material, and he was highly critical of a proposed 22 bill to teach children about gender identity in schools, saying before you know it, they'll be reading kids 50 Shades of Grey. This discussion is better at a more mature age. This is the whole accusations of grooming against it's so it's so annoyingly and frustratingly, especially when the queer communities everywhere are under vicious attack, and people are but here we are, here's another one, and as a lot of the news stories pointed out, the arrest happened hours after Eichhorn was got a lot of internet buzz along with a few other Senate leaders for introducing a bill to classify Trump derangement syndrome as a mental illness. Karma doesn't usually work that fast, but that was very fast.
I think Karma was shopping at the Mall of America.
Yeah,
The proximity. And here's the thing, Javier. I don't think you're being unfair right there, because I am grossed out, disgusted by the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
People have their religious views, they have their political views, and they should be given those things. But to make it your mission to attack a group for things that you are doing
literally
is reprehensible, and makes it invalidates your whole argument, and not just for you, but for all of your colleagues in the Senate who now look like idiots and a-holes for palling around with you on these things when you're off doing God knows what with God knows who, allegedly. But it is just very, very, very disappointing and gross, and I'm angry about it.
Well, and the federal charges or the charging sheet gives some examples. So I've heard a couple things. I've heard oh well, is there a coincidence that he put up this bill and then he's caught in a sting? I've heard.
Meaning what? That it's like a deep state thing?
Yes. And then I also heard that
deep state doesn't move as fast.
Again, I've heard, and I just want to
deep
say to
state
anyone,
was fired.
Read the charging favors. He's clearly well versed.
He knows the lingo.
He knows the lingo. I didn't know the lingo. I was reading.
Because why would you?
But I mean, I'm like, what does that mean?
There was a QV
quarter time.
QT, yeah.
QT.
My head goes to QVC.
So I worked in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office in the property crimes division, and so this was back in the day. This was assigned back there, and this division was assigned in that division, and so I was familiar with some of the lingo. But if you read the complaint, it's very clear that he knew what to do, how to order and and
also it was clear that I think that
he also had another phone.
Yes,
he found the money in his truck, which was for one of the QV and some add-ons, I believe, and then he also had two phones. Which means that he's got his phone for his Senate stuff and his family, and he's got a whole other
it just
phone.
sounds like he's done it before.
Right, well, you go to the website where to order. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He knew where to go and what to do. I mean, that's somebody that's seeking this out. Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time.
And also, he did a lot of follow-up. If you saw, he texted the number, and they didn't respond.
But that's purposeful.
And then he texted the number again. And so somebody said that they kind of do that to really test. Well, and also, maybe he's drinking. Yeah. Maybe he's just having a one bad night of loneliness, right? And he's just going to let him be. And they let him sort of walk into it. And he was constantly texting one day, can I see you? Yeah, are you available? So, I mean, there's some serious, issues that Senator Eichhorn has.
Well, this very quickly the story became national, I think.
Of course.
Gabe, you want to pull up, social media went crazy very quickly.
Every Sunday night during session, I say goodbye to my wife and kids and make the 3-hour trek to St. Paul to fight for our way of life, because day after day, it is under attack from Metro liberals.
A Minnesota state senator just arrested, accused of soliciting a minor for prostitution. 40-year-old Senator Justin Eichhorn is a Republican representing Grand Rapids. Bloomington police say that detectives posed as a 16-year-old girl and arranged to meet with him in Bloomington. Well, he was arrested after arriving in the area of the meeting spot.
There you go. Yeah. So that started out with one of his campaign ads, and there's and there are a whole bunch more with the pairing up the Trump derangement syndrome with the whole thing. It's just Minnesotans love it when Minnesota's in the national news, but not like this. Oh, Christ.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. My understanding is that he's still, as of the recording of this, which we record on Wednesday afternoon, that he's still sitting in jail. I don't. But that's what I'd heard and that there's something in the courts tomorrow. But
I think next week we should try to have either somebody with law enforcement experience or an attorney who knows, who can give us.
Yeah.
More.
We can do more background on this. It's this literally happened yesterday morning.
Yeah.
So I mean, what I understand is that so it happened Monday night. His wife, he did not call his wife. She hadn't heard from him, and she became very concerned, and had reached out to authorities to help find him, and they found him in the jail. And so,
Lordy.
so there's lots more to come on this. I'm sure it will be. I think, and I hope the Senate will come to quick action on this, as they should. If he will not resign,
It's gonna paralyze the Senate if they don't. The same way,
1,000%.
the same way the Mitchell stuff just made them so that they couldn't. Senator Mitchell, and for anyone who doesn't know, Senator Mitchell, Nicole Mitchell, was charged with felony burglary, breaking into her mother's home, stepmother's home, and the Republicans, just made her expulsion the main focus of the Senate for a number of days. This was at the end of last session, so. There's no reason to think that it wouldn't be the same situation here. And from everything we've seen, the Senate Republicans do not seem to have any interest in sticking up for Senator Eichhorn.
Zero.
So let's move on to other Minnesota news. Other Minnesota late breaking news, like I think we got news of this while we were on our way to the podcast. Feeding Our Future head Amy Bach was convicted, and
Swiftly
former restaurant owner
convicted.
Salim Saeed were convicted on all counts in the Feeding Our Future scandal. This is the folks who decided to exploit the tragedy of COVID-19 pandemic to try to enrich themselves, and brought a whole lot of folks along with them. And Bach was accused. Amy Bach was accused of being sort of kind of like the mastermind, right? Because hers was the kind of central nonprofit, and then there were others that she was subbing to in some ways. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, it took them only 5 hours to find a guilty verdict. Right. So then Salim Saeed, these two were sort of the kingpins.
Yeah.
Certainly Amy Bach with the Feeding Our Future scandal is based on her organization.
Yeah.
But then Salim Saeed, how is he?
He's the
co-conspirator.
He was. My understanding is he was the former owner of a restaurant that was claiming that they were feeding thousands and thousands of kids, and they were not feeding any kids. So he was one of the. So I don't know how closely whether he was a planner in the same way, but it's just they have wreaked a lot of havoc.
21 crimes in each of found guilty of 21 crimes, including wire fraud, federal program bribery, and each of their counts of wire fraud carries 20-year maximum.
So Javier said created lots of havoc. I want to talk about, just for a second, the devastating impact that their actions have had on other nonprofits.
Exactly.
Who do the work. I think a lot of people think, well, nonprofits shouldn't get state money because blah, 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 blah. They do you want to grow government? Then ask the Department of Human Services to do all this work. Ask the Department of Education to do all this work. If you think that is what you want, then you're not a small government person. What you do is you contract with people in the community. Nonprofits do that work. And yes, I represent some. And what I can tell you is there is not a meeting about a nonprofit at the Capitol where Feeding Our Future doesn't get brought up. And they're all painted with the same brush, primarily. And you don't start from a point of you do good work, prove it. It's, are you defrauding the system, children, the government? Prove that you're not.
As a direct result of this and several other instances. Now, there is some work going on at the Capitol around an inspector general, an office of inspector general, which some other states have. There's some additional reforms for payment, but also there has to be called into, there has to be oversight. There has to be things within the agencies that are cutting these checks, because how do you have a supposed restaurant that is, again, supposedly serving thousands and thousands and thousands of children lunches, more children than are in that area for the district, and no one goes, that math is just not mathing. Maybe we should go out there and see what's going on. Maybe we should pop in at a lunchtime and see.
Yeah, no, the reform
I don't understand that.
No, the oversight and reform needs to happen, and it needs to be done. Like, I keep thinking of the youth intervention programming money that is done. Like, say, Youth Service Bureau gets money for restorative justice for youth. That goes from the YIPA money is appropriated from the state to the office of under the Office of Public Safety or Department of Public Safety, Office of Justice. So think about it. I've just said two things, and then it's that. So all the checks and balances that come through before that, and it's through a grant process, right?
And does it go out to local units of government or to nonprofits?
That one goes to Youth Service Bureau, but two other departments review it before it gets sent to them.
Okay.
And that's what it should, that oversight and that accountability needs to happen
Right.
before just directly handing it to a nonprofit. And these were appropriated out of legislation. That is not what happens for YIPA money and for many other appropriations that help really good causes and really good services that people need to have, whether it's housing, whether it's hunger, whether it's community health clinics. But they should be going through a department who has an oversight and a checks and a balance in it.
And I think they're at the legislature needs to be an agreed upon, like, just, I think, ending direct appropriations to organizations and instituting competitive processes.
Yes.
Yeah, but okay, I get that, but it's the agencies that are writing these checks.
Yes, it's the
So I have
agencies.
problems with that, Javier, because I'm not sure. Why am I going to trust the agencies to make these good decisions?
Because as it is right now, the nonprofits that can afford lobbyists are more likely to get.
But this feeding our future stuff had nothing to do with the direct appropriation. Nothing. It was through the agencies, through
I
competitive
was simply
grants.
referring, because you brought it up, that as we're talking about reforms, that is a reform that I think should be,
And I agree.
that should be considered, because I'm not saying even that, like, right now that everything that goes out that way is untoward. But it does set up a situation where that is unfair for, like, and that doesn't necessarily that organizations are being adjusted.
But
And I
all
think
of
there
these
needs to be
programs-
reforms in the department
Right.
that allow for the checks and balance. I think the inspector general is
Whether
a good
it's
idea, but
CCAP or the
Yep.
housing, the
Yep.
homelessness
Autism
money,
centers.
the
The
autism
autism
centers.
centers.
None of that was direct.
Yep.
I just want to
Yep.
like, it was all through the agencies
Yep.
deciding
Yep.
who to give it to.
Yep, and that needs reforms, and that's what's happening right now in a bipartisan manner. Not
Yeah.
all that easy, but it's happening in a bipartisan manner, and I think it'll get through the end of session.
It's just, yeah. I mean, and again, prosecute these.
There
these
isn't one
fools to the
solution
full
to
extent
it.
of the law.
There isn't just
full
one
extent.
solution.
These are
to it.
criminals.
Yep.
Remember, 7 of them that got convicted.
Yep.
Was it 6 months ago? And then one of them was not convicted, but was caught then bribing the jury twice. Like.
Yeah.
Like,
Jury
and he was
tampering.
the jury,
Jury tampering.
right? They found jury tampering where they dropped a bag of money
Right.
on one of the jury's father's house or something.
I think there was witness intimidation as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, these are
So
criminals.
let's move on to national news. Oh lordy, and oh lordy. So I think when the Chief Justice of the United States, who does not normally speak to anything, let alone cases that are not before him, goes out of his way to rebuke the president for his calls to impeach a judge after the Trump administration has finally done it, just ignored court orders in the case of the president's I would say bogus use of the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to deport folks from the U.S. Every step of this is so weird because, like, it's so out of, like, the case was before over the weekend he signed the order. It was sort of done in secret, and then the ACLU sued because I think they suspected that this was coming along, and they sued on behalf of some clients. There is what we should know is that there, for a good number of people, it's highly contested. Like their family members highly contest that they were gang members, but there's no due process. And there's one gentleman, a queer guy who is a tattoo artist, was a tattoo artist in Venezuela, so had tattoos but not gang tattoos, and that was used as evidence. And he had come to the United States and sought asylum just through the regular process. So he was just simply that's a legal thing to do, by international law and U.S. law. So the case went before a federal judge in Washington D.C. who ordered a temporary stay and said that any planes that had left should return. 2 planes had left. They did not return. The lawyers claimed that because the judge's order was only done verbally, it had not been yet written, which is, as far as I know,
or signed with an
the
airplane.
Lawyers, right? The lawyers can say, but I think when judges make rulings from the bench, generally, lawyers don't say, "Well, write it down first, then I'll listen to you." But not just that. There was a 3rd plane that had not left, and after the written order went off anyway, and then when the judge called in the attorneys for the government and asked, they said they refused to answer questions. This is a very serious line has been crossed here. In response, some members of Congress have introduced articles of impeachment against that judge. It's so in the pocket of the authoritarian that literally doing his bidding that way, even though there aren't the votes in the Senate to convict on because of the high bar to convict for an impeachment. Nonetheless, I think it's terrifying that there isn't a universal rebuke of an administration just ignoring the rule of law.
Because when you don't get the judicial rulings that you want, you threaten to pack the court. So what you're saying
what the fuck does that have to do with this?
That has to do with...
Has to do... Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. What? You think... People don't ever...
Okay.
What's the show, Javier?
Huh?
Is the show the Javier says whatever he wants and you don't get to do a counterpoint? When the Democrats didn't like what the courts were doing, what did they do? They said they're going to pack the court. And that is the reason why doesn't matter, but it's an equal dismissal of the autonomy of the court. And I find impeaching somebody because they don't do what you want is equivalent of saying we're just going to keep putting people on there.
You're saying people talking about, because as far as I know, the packing of the court did not happen. You're saying people talking about it is the equivalent. You're saying it is just the exact same thing as them literally disobeying an order and sending people into a prison where people get murdered and into a country that they are not from. That is bananas. I'm sorry. It is.
Well, yeah. I guess I thought I was on a podcast where you talk about stuff, and
I did. Who's telling you not to talk? I'm just saying I disagree with
you.
And
you just said you're
when have I
sit there?
An expansion of the Supreme...
I can say what you're saying is dumb without saying that. No one's stopping you from talking. Talk. I don't care.
Right.
And I will say that expansion of the Supreme Court is something that some Democrats, Senator Smith, campaigned on.
That's right.
Their Democrats campaigned on that. Some candidates for Senate did, and so that the bills were, I believe, introduced,
which is the same as articles of impeachment being introduced by certain members of Congress.
I don't
Which
think
I don't
anybody
agree with,
campaigned
by
on
the way.
impeaching. I don't think people campaigned on impeaching judges that disagree with your rulings.
And I'm not saying that the reasonings are the same. The reasonings aren't the same. I'm saying that the actions to me are the same. It's saying if the court isn't doing what we want, we're gonna either
ignore them,
remove the
impeach
person,
them,
or
pack
or
it.
pack other people.
All of
This
this
is-
is bad stuff.
I'm granting you
one of
that-
them
I'm
is a
granting you-
policy proposal because, which is possible because of our structure of government. It could be shot down. It could be debated. It could not. It could not. In fact, it did. It has not moved. But to say that it is the equivalent of an actual an actual just disobeying an order in a way that is just that we've not seen since Andrew Jackson said let the Supreme Court let them enforce the law to pretend that this is not different I just think is absurd.
Well, I mean,
It's
we
absurd.
wouldn't have the New Deal without the threat of packing the court. So anyway, well, agree to disagree, Javier. You're still my friend. That's the show. Jackass.
That is the show.
Yeah, no, it is the show. It's
Jackass.
It's like no. This is what happens when Trump does things something so outrageous that it is indefensible, and you're embarrassed to be a Republican.
You get a derangement syndrome going on over here.
Yeah, no, yeah. Let's talk about the author of that one. I already did.
No, he did.
So here's some news that'll make you happy. So because so much has happened in the last week. God, I don't love returning to the times when so much happened in a damn week that you can't keep up. Because since the last time we met, there was the government shutdown showdown, which Chuck Schumer just completely caved on, and is now there.
Continuing resolutions were adopted. Yeah, you're right. That was just Thursday. That was Thursday, Friday of last week.
Yeah.
Wow, that seems like a month ago.
And yesterday, Nancy Pelosi, it's reported as shivved Chuck Schumer in the back because people are blaming him. I mean, by people, I mean a lot of Democrats.
A lot of Democrats. R.T. Ryback.
Shamed Amy Koch. Amy Koch. Sorry, Amy. I can't believe I did that. Amy Klobuchar.
Anymore.
Wrong Amy.
Amy
Klobuchar, because she had the night before put out this statement that was both bland and kind of incomprehensible, saying I will vote for this because.
Did she vote for the continuing resolution?
I think she ended up now.
No. She did not.
Yeah. She did not.
She did not. No. Her and Tina both voted against it.
Yeah.
I will say this.
Then what
so
did
she was
do wrong?
for it before she was against it.
I will say this. I don't know why.
Deep cut.
Take it up with her. I'm not going to.
I got nothing personal against Pelosi or Schumer. I just don't know why we still have to have their names.
Yeah.
We got other talent.
Well,
Do you? That is under the age of 80?
But we've talked about this the last 2 weeks because I've kind of said, hey, who is the leader of the Democrat Party?
I
all are.
still
And the answer is that they keep getting brought up because there really isn't one yet.
And this is a distraction, and this is exactly what Trump wants us to do. He wants us to be fighting each other instead of I'm going to say it again. Nobody campaigned on 80,000 cuts to the VA. That's what Trump and Musk did. Nobody did the cuts to the National Research Institute. Trump and Musk did. Nobody campaigned on that.
Maybe Matt Gates did.
So, I'm just saying all these horrendous cuts to agriculture, to, everything else that working families, Medicaid, what they're going to do to Social Security, which you're going to hear about in a second, that the Republicans and Musk and Trump did, nobody campaigned on. And so when we talk about this stuff, like Pelosi and shivving Schumer, it's a distraction that doesn't get out there.
Yeah. Yep.
It is amazing that it's still Pelosi and Schumer. It feels very 2004.
It's interesting because there have been this rash of articles in the DC press about Jean Shaheen announcing she's not going to run and Tina Smith announcing she's not going to run, and how there's consternation amongst Democrats that it might make it harder for them to keep the Senate in an off year, and
you mean to take back the Senate?
Weird
I'm
take.
sorry, to take back the
It's a
Senate.
weird
To take
take.
back the second.
Republicans are in charge.
It is a weird take.
take.
Because when the country is like has been having the conversation like the one we just had about how like we have a leadership in the country that is geriatric, and I say that like say I would not have a problem with age diversity, meaning there's some old people, but also some young people. But we have a uniformly over 80 leadership. It is
not
insane.
even just age, it's the length that they have been there.
Yep.
And the idea and the power that goes to people's heads, and then they decide they are the only ones that can possibly like handle the situation. There are no other leaders that could step forward. A mark of a good leader is knowing when to step aside, and a mark of a good leader is bringing the folks up behind you to lead.
And I was just going to say
none of these folks have done that. It is a baby boomer trait. I'm sorry to get generational, but it's true.
Boomers.
They just can never walk away. Like they can never exit stage left gracefully.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. No. And so but my point about these, like, actually, I think it's really incredibly exciting that there are going to be these open seats where a new generation of leadership can step in and maybe like, and so that we don't have the same old.
But I love Tina Smith.
I love Tina too.
I mean, there's nothing wrong.
That's
and
a
I love
leader
Nancy
that says
Pelosi.
it's time for me to step aside.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
and
you
bring
just
up a new
have the
generation.
foresight to do that. And like, I think you could say this too. We've all, and it's not an age thing, as you said, but like, just being able to look at either a newer leader and be able to teach them the ropes and stuff like that. Like Tina Smith. I actually met Tina Smith in 2002 when I worked on Judy Dutcher's campaign. Tina Smith was the only one. I was a field
Former
organizer.
Republican Judy Dutcher.
Well, here's the thing,
That's a
though.
deeper
Tina Smith is so wicked smart that she sat with our field team every night after we did delegate calls to learn so that she could hear what we were talking about. Like, that's how I built my relationship with Tina Smith to this day. And I learned a lot from Tina through the years, and then I just have kept in contact with her all the way up till today. Like, I mean, in our roles. So I mean, she is somebody that has really brought along younger generation, like we're talking about. Same with Amy, same with Betty, same with a lot of these women.
Yeah.
They have. I mean, they have. Look, I'm younger than both of them, and they have. I count them role models.
Yeah. No, I just like I think that Tina, right? She but and her decision is related to that.
Yes.
Right. Is like when I left my role at Local 26, there were a lot of people in the labor movement who were like really surprised because people in those positions, those positions can be both very powerful. They can be. They were not in my case, but they can be lucrative in terms of salary. Mm-hmm. Not mine, but at all, like, and people are just surprised. But if you have a philosophy of building leadership from the membership, at a certain point, there's only so far people can go if the people at the top don't move on.
Right.
Like it's all lip service.
Right.
Otherwise,
and go out with dignity for that leadership.
Yeah. But we should get to Spanks and Thanks.
Do we have plugs first?
All right. Oh, yeah, plugs. I am tonight hosting The Moth.
Where is it? What time?
It's at you can't go because I don't know if it's sold out. It might not be 7:30.
Most of the time it does.
7:30 at the Parkway Theater.
Couldn't they call you for free tickets though, or
they could if you could if people are looking. Yes, you could message me on my socials, but actually I don't think it is sold out. So
okay.
So and the theme tonight, I love the theme tonight. It's a new one, beef.
Ooh. It's what's for dinner.
Now, what I hope is that it's not. See, what often happens.
I think of like a beef, like a fight.
That's what I like. That's I'm hoping. I'm hoping we get a little bit of meat, but more of like. You're beefing with someone.
Yeah.
But I suspect what often happens with things like this is that a lot of it will be about farms because it's Minnesotans. It'll be about their childhood growing up on a farm and
best friend.
But that's all right. But yeah, so if folks want to step by last minute and see that tonight, doors open at 6:30 and stories start at 7:30. The next time I am hosting the Moth will be in May, and I'm so excited for this one because I will be returning to the Amsterdam and St. Paul. So we now have 2 shows a month, one in Minneapolis, one in St. Paul. I keep getting scheduled only in the Minneapolis one, but the theme in May. May 7th, and I'm just thinking that you could come and tell a story of this. It's at the Amsterdam. The theme is only in St. Paul. Ooh. I think we're doing like city specific.
I saw the mayor of St. Paul today.
Yeah,
he was at the Capitol.
But you guys, you could tell a story like because St. Paul's also the capital. Yeah. Like so you could do only in St. Paul.
Also, there's all the hauntings at the Capitol.
I am looking forward to it because it's one of those weird things about Minnesota is how much people in Minneapolis and St. Paul like cling to that bit about how different the cities are, and like, I never get there. I was like, oh, right,
they really don't.
Oh my God, they're so everyone's so dramatic about it.
I can remember when we moved
East Side, West Side.
When we moved here from Illinois, we initially it was supposed to be for a short period of time, so we rented, and then we were looking for something permanent when we decided to stay. I can't remember which city it was, but we asked a neighbor like what they thought of whatever town that was because we didn't know any of the towns.
Oh no!
And she goes, oh, that's okay if you want to cross the river. I think it's
true though.
That was the thing, and as you'll know, I have no sense of direction, and so before GPS, I used to get lost all the time. So people will be like, "Oh, it's just across the river." I'm like, "How do you fucking know? How do you know?" And then they say just across the river.
Carla,
it's
east
like
side.
if they'll say like if you see the river, it's like then you know where north is. I'm like, I just told you don't have a sense of direction, jackass. Right. That's not helpful.
It isn't helpful. Don't tell me north and south.
Yeah.
Tell me turn by this sign or this store.
Yes. But anyway,
all right,
let's go.
Where I live, it's farm.
Yeah. All right.
Amy and I are on the BS show with Bob Sansevier every Tuesday, and then this Sunday I'm going to be on At Issue with Tom Hauser, 10 o'clock on Channel 5 KSTP.
And I will I'll just plug the Capitol Clash. It's on Fridays at 8:20 on WCCO 830 with Vinny Sakar. And Jeff Hayden goes on there with me. And we talk about the week's news. So catch us this Friday at 8:20.
And I'll plug that March Madness starts tomorrow.
You got your bracket ready?
No, get your brackets in.
I got to go copy someone's.
What are you guys talking about?
March Madness.
NCAA?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks,
Who wants to go
Clint.
first? Specs and things.
I can go first. And I think we're a little pressed for time, so I will be brief. So my first bank is going to be to Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. We have talked on this program about Tim Walz going to other states where Republicans aren't having town halls with their constituents, and so Tim Walz is going there and talking to Democrats and trying to fire up the DFL base, the Democratic base, and also keep himself in the people's eye in case he wants to run for president in 2028, and that is fine. Do whatever you want. But the spank is because, and this came from an Axios article, Tori Van Oot, who does a really good job, that says Walz's attack on Republicans has also attracted scrutiny over his town hall track record. While he held them as a member of Congress, Walz aides were unable to identify any he's hosted in Minnesota since becoming governor in 2019.
Ouch.
That ain't good. But anyway, so he is spanked. Remember, you're the governor of this state, and there are people in this state who have definite things that need addressing, and you are their governor, not the governor of Wisconsin. And then my second spank is going to be, or a thank it could be, in the Star Tribune, there was a counterpoint article by Tom Anderson talking about how Speaker Lisa Damath is not necessarily getting the attention for being the first woman of color to be Speaker of the Minnesota House. We have a lot of firsts here that get celebrated, whether it's Peggy Flanagan being the first lieutenant governor indigenous person, whether it's Ilhan Omar, whether, Keith Ellison, all of these firsts get celebrated and brought up. And really, Lisa Damath has not been elevated to the point of anyone saying, well, she is, a role model. She is somebody who shows young women of color that they can become anything. And I think that's wrong. And I think that she is a historic figure. She is a very kind and nice person. I like her very much. I think she's doing a good job to this point, though we're kind of getting ready to really get into the meat and potatoes of it. But I think that because she's a Republican, because she's in Greater Minnesota, her accomplishments get diminished, and I think that is wrong. So that is being spanked.
How many times has the Republican caucus referred to the historic nature of her?
Many, actually.
No, they haven't. Like this is and she's like.
You see
Democrats
legislators
talk about it.
talking about
It's the same thing we've talked about with you. You say a lot now, but at the time, like that you were the first Senate Majority Leader. But it's not popular in your party. If people started saying that, you like the people in your party would start calling her a DEI hire.
Well, I here's the difference. I actually see it a lot more. I think that things have really changed since when I was there, 2011. Right, because I agree. When I was the first woman Senate Majority Leader, it was barely covered at all. But it was also something that Republicans didn't want to talk about. I do see a change in that, Javier, I would say, with Lisa Damath. I have not seen the change in the reporting. I just have to be honest about that. And I talk about it, and anyway, I think she doesn't, because I think there's sort of the weight that comes with it.
But Democrats, when Democrats like elect a first, they talk about it.
Yeah,
that's how you drive a story.
I really am. I'm seeing a lot more of like Republicans stepping up. So, but.
Do you want to go?
Yes, I will. So my thank is actually for a friend of the podcast and actually the current, I think, 10-year award winner of the Pat Garofalo Terrible Tweet Award, Pat Garofalo himself. Because Pat Garofalo...
Did he tweet something bad again?
He had a tweet, and it's a thank, actually.
Is it?
It's a thank.
It's not racist?
It's not. Nope. Right. And it's not about the NBA, and it's not about... about anything.
Sports betting.
Here it is. He simply tweeted, "There is no due process in politics. This is an opportunity for the Minnesota Senate to do the right thing and temporarily reduce its membership by 2. And he is correct, and he is to be thanked, even though many of his tweets have won him awards on here. That one wins a big thank. And then my spank is to myself. This is a very personal spank, and it goes to me. It is for friend of the podcast, Paul Cummings. I owe myself. I will self-spank. I'm not going to say why. He knows why. And this is my public apology.
and I won't say what it was, but I observed it, and I'm the one who told her, this is what you just did.
Okay. I can't wait for the cameras to turn off. Cause
no, he knows. It's not that big a deal.
It's not that big of a deal.
But he's a very solid podcast listener and friend of the program.
Yeah. He is great. So my spank is to the Social Security Administrator, Leland Dudick, because without very much notice, they are, beginning March 31st, no longer allowing people to verify their identity over the phone. And they're going to have to go online or in person to an agency field office, where they are actually shuttering a lot of the doors of the Social Security offices. So this is going to hurt people in rural communities, people with disabilities, mobile limitations, and limited places with internet access. I just think when you are there to serve our most vulnerable population and our elderly, you should not be making it more difficult to do that. So
our phones are so useful now that sometimes you don't need a regular computer or an iPad or anything like that. And they should make it easier for people to not harder.
Bank. Social Security one. And then the thank is to Chief Booker Hodges. I don't know if you can put up the statement that he did, but it was from the city of Bloomington about...
It actually didn't let me, when I went to the page, it said it wasn't available.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to pivot and just...
Pivot.
And I'm keeping with Social Security and boomers. I'm going to thank Mama Bigham because she got a brand new Apple phone.
Whatever it is,
And
I'm
she
in.
did a good job of figuring it out. Like even
Of course
how
she did,
to
'cause she's
adjust.
brilliant and beautiful.
Yes, adjusting the volume and everything. So thanks, Mama Bigham.
Thanks, Mama Bigham. I shall join that thing.
And I have a double spank, of course, because that's what life is these days.
Feisty today.
The first one is that so the reason Trump can impose these tariffs is declaring emergency, essentially that we're kind of in wartime, and so all these supposedly free trade Republicans, who say that they disagree with tariffs, one thing they could do is just actually end the emergency, and because Congress can do that. They decided to do something, but it was not that. They decided to take away, to give up their authority to ceding their power on this, and essentially saying, and they're doing it by calling. Because there's a certain amount of days that have to after which there has to be a vote. So they've declared that this legislative session, until the midterm elections, they declared it is all one day. From the beginning of until that's how they did it. So that's how
This is dumb, by the way, because you just give away your power and you set a precedent for the
Continuing
future.
resolution.
It's just
It's in the continuing
And then when the
resolution.
Democrats do it, don't be upset. I hate when either side does this.
Yeah, and then my other spank. The Washington Post is reporting that Columbia University is about to give in to all of Trump's demands of them. Now, remember that. So this is done under the guise supposedly of protecting students and saying that the university didn't do enough to fight anti-Semitism. This is the same excuse under which they disappeared and now are trying to deport a legal permanent resident, someone with a green card, who they thought was on a student visa but was not, and was taken away in an unmarked car and then moved to Louisiana. And it took his family a while to find out where he even was. But the demands that are made on the university include placing Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African Studies Department under academic receivership for a minimum of 5 years. These are all conditions under which that if they didn't meet them, the $400 million in research money from the federal government would be pulled. This is an astonishing attack on academic freedom and free speech, of course. And they are doing this to show that they can. And Columbia is making it hard to defend them because they have an endowment. They could take the hit. They could decide to do that and stand on principle. And then because I honestly I wondered about the future of the institution, because what faculty are going to go to a university? How it will be difficult to recruit top-notch faculty when you know that you don't have academic freedom. That at any point, which means then that you won't have the students. What students are going to go to a place that doesn't have the best faculty, or where your free speech rights are not respected or protected. So it's a sad day, but just another step on our march to full-on authoritarianism, because
Harvard's using their endowment to give free tuition
Yes.
to different tiers.
Yeah, 200,000 a household, 200,000 a year and lower. And with that, I today have About Derangement Syndrome. Javier Murillo. Say it right.
Jackass. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
And I have Mama Bigham derangement syndrome, and I'm not giving it up. Amy Koch.
And I am former DFL Senator Carla Bigham.
And we are wrong about everything.